Thank you, Uriel. Thank you for highlighting that sometimes simple actions of defiance can make a world of difference. Just like wearing jeans and having an Elvis Presley haircut, the people in Kherson right now who refuse to bow down to the Russian military, who come out every single day and sing the Ukrainian national anthem, they're making a similar difference. As well as smaller cities all across Ukraine, as well as all of you who continue to be here and to brave the cold. And I promise we're getting closer to this event of wrapping up. But as a quick break from speakers, we'd like to bring back our two wonderful singers, Anjali LaRose and Alexandra Khrabova, for two quick song performances before we finish up with our last speakers. So please, Anjali and Alexandra.
Вся навесні вийти у світ не з нами мішлами сорочку мати вишила мені червоними і чорними червоними і чорними нитками. Şurba you. Glory to Ukraine.
That was beautiful.
Friends, I don't even have words. Ukrainian is not her native language. She doesn't even know Ukrainian, but that performance is earth-shattering. So let's give another round of applause for Miss Angelique. Friends, and welcoming back to stage Alexandra Rabova.
Чорнобривці насіяла мати. Слова цієї пісні зіткані з моїх клітин. Україна, наша рідна країна, наша мати. Це та земля, де ми народилися і живемо. Це земля наших батьків, дідів і прадідів. Усім нам безмежно дорога мати Україна. І хоч би куди не закинула наша доля українця, його душа залишається там, де тихі води, ясні зорі, де наше коріння, хлопці на війні, і мама їх чекає. Нехай кожен повертається додому живий, а чорнобривці народжують пам'ять про маму. Низький вам уклін, матері України. І на оновленій землі врага не буде супостата, а буде син, і буде мати, і будуть люди на землі. Слава Україні!
Я пишаюся нашою мовою. Я знаю, що Україна переможе, що ми це відстоїмо. Слава Україні! Sorry, I took a break to transition to Ukrainian because I am proud of my language and I'm proud of hearing such a wonderful performance, two such wonderful performances. Thank you all for braving the cold and for staying. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is another co-organizer, Ms. Nadia McConnell. She is the president of the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation and a supporter of Ukraine's independence and rights for many decades. Nadia, please.
How does anybody follow those two absolutely beautiful, amazing voices that we heard from? Fortunately, some of the words I will be telling you are not mine, you know, we've been supporting U.S.-Ukraine relations since our founding in 1990, and we have believed that a strategic partnership between Ukraine and the United States is more than needs to be deeper than the bilateral. We believe it needed to go down to the grassroots, and I am therefore proud that we were able to bring thousands of what I call non-hyphenated Americans to Ukraine to form those bonds that have lasted for decades. 2 days ago, I received this message as I was struggling to decide what I was going to say, and I decided to just read this to you. This is from Sandy Turner, who participated in our community partnership projects from Athens, Georgia. She writes, on September 15, 2001, I flew to Lviv, Ukraine on one of the first planes to leave the United States after 9/11. I was headed to Kamenets-Podilsky, a medieval town full of castles and history, as part of the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation's Community Partnership Program, CPP we called it. The team made up of representatives from the University of Georgia and Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia. We were going to work with our Ukrainian peers to strengthen local government services. The first thing I noticed was the color of the soil. It was a black so dark and so rich, I have never been able to describe its intensity or fragrance. Minerals so dense, I could smell them from our van. It helped me understand why I had grown up knowing Ukraine as the breadbasket of Europe. The most important impression I have of Ukraine is the kindness of the people. We were treated like royalty. Every meeting started with gifts, local delicacy, and vodka, even at 10 in the morning. Our host wanted to know us as people first. They took us to see the natural treasures in the countryside. They took us to schools to meet the future of their country, kids in their late 20s now, and deeply impacted by this senseless war. They performed traditional dances and taught us to dance them. They made us bread and blintzes and borscht. Every meal ended with toast, sappy and profound, and to the horses. Toasting in Ukraine is an art form full of structure and tradition. The first toast is to the meeting. The third toast is always to women in love. And the 10th toast to gratitude. And yes, you always get there. And so on until you get to the aforementioned horses. Well, really, this is what they say in Ukraine, na konya, which means one for the road. The memory that haunts me today is from a late night with our translator, Yaroslav, talking about things politically inclined Americans talk about: equality, gay rights, music, elected officials. Yaroslav was silent. At some point, we asked his thoughts. He said, I quote, "You all speak with such freedom. We could never talk with such abandon for fear of retribution," unquote. Independence had come to Ukraine 10 years earlier, and the specter of the Soviet Union with its repression and violence loomed large in their psyche even still. We fell silent. The sudden knowledge of our privilege cutting through the vodka and the revelry. We have no idea what it is to live like this. Tonight, I'm praying for all of Ukraine, my friends in the launched Operation Ukraine Airlift because unlike when we worked with United Help Ukraine in 2014-15, we were sending ships. And of course, that just not is good enough. So we have to find ways to get to airlift it. There's been a lot of suggestions of things that we can do and ask for. I'd like to just add one very specific thing. I have worked with Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur in 2015 and today to see if we can get our government to allow the National Guard to help deliver humanitarian assistance. This is something that I think we should be able to do now. I want to introduce, as I say, we just met yesterday, and I'd like to introduce George Kozakos, nice, good Ukrainian name, no, Greek, who came in from California to help join in this struggle, and also Ben Lorenzen. I have a hard time with these ethnic names. A third person I'd like to introduce and actually invite to say a couple of words is Brian Hardgroove from the legendary hip-hop group Public Enemy, and also WeCare.world. Brian. Okay. All right.
I got you. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all out here. It would be nice if it was under a different circumstance, but we're here. All right. I started my career far enough back to have been behind the Iron Curtain, or close to it. Okay, in Berlin, and it was ugly. Wasn't pretty at all. And we do not need to go back to those days. The people of Ukraine don't want it. No one wants it. The Russian people don't want it. And I've got friends from all around the world. I've got lots of Russian friends and more Ukrainian friends than I realized, that I'm finding out are Ukrainian. And these are the worst circumstances to find that out. But as musicians, we're blessed to see the best side of people. And Ben, my brother, Ben Lorenzen, we've been in bands together since we were kids, sort of. And he outgrew me, but it's okay. And we decided to freshly mint a new organization called We Care. And the website should be up in about a couple of hours, WeCare.world. And we have committed to bringing as many of our musician friends as we can to this very spot, teaming up with Nadia next, May 21st, okay? So we'll get the information out to you, and hopefully we'll see you here back, and we're gonna make as much noise as we can, get the people of the United States to stand up, speak up, and get our government moving. We elect representatives, not leaders, okay? Always remember that. We elect representatives, and we must get them to represent what we want done in this world, all right? And our brothers and sisters need us, and we cannot turn our back now, and this is for everyone. Ukraine, this has to end. This type of calcification and just letting things happen, it needs to end with this, hopefully, final ridiculous aggression. All right, so we're there. We're here for you, and we'll be back. And God bless you. All right. Okay, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you, Ms. McConnell. Thank you for that wonderful speech and for also talking about what we're going to do in the future, because this event does not end here. Friends, our next speaker is Nadia Shaporinska, president of UKRES Ukrainian Activists.
Hello everyone. I would like to say good afternoon and happy spring. But with our beloved Ukraine and its people still under Russia's barbaric assault, it is hard to feel any real happiness right now. Last time we met here at the Lincoln Memorial was February the 20th, 4 days before the full-scale invasion by Russia. It feels like 100 years ago, an eternity. After 1 month of Russia's cruel and criminal war on Ukraine, there are 10 million displaced persons, or 1/4 of Ukraine's population, which includes 3.6 million refugees who have fled to other countries. There are more than 3,000 dead civilians in the city of Mariupol, and all of its residential buildings have been damaged or destroyed. The so-called military targets Putin said he was going after. Meanwhile, in 1 month, about 140 innocent children were killed and about 200 were injured. One little girl, an inspiring gymnast and dancer, was trying to escape with her mother when Russian soldiers opened fire on the car she was in. The bullets went through her jaw and tongue, almost hitting the artery in her neck. She is alive, but can barely walk and will need intensive and prolonged therapies. So many young lives cut short. So many dreams destroyed. Russia is bombing indiscriminately hospitals, churches, schools, museums, theaters, historical monuments, and other purely civilian targets, trying to destroy Ukrainian history and culture. More than 1,200 missiles have been dropped on Ukraine's cities. Mariupol, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Kyiv, and Sumy have been under constant bombardment. The worst of it has been Mariupol, which remains under siege, where people have not had water for weeks, where there is starvation and desperation and nowhere safe to go. Not even a theater with the words "Дети," which means children, written in giant letters outside, and many of you know that story. And definitely not along a supposed green evacuation corridor, because that is exactly what Russians are targeting. All they do is lie and kill and destroy. They have no honor. They only know dirty tricks. What we are witnessing today are war crimes, including the rape of Ukrainian women by soldiers and forced starvation, just as the Kremlin forcibly starved millions of Ukrainians in the terror famine of 1932-33 under Stalin. There were no Nuremberg-type tribunals then for Russian fascists, but Russia must be held to account this time and must be made to pay massive reparations once this horrible war is over. We have been hoping that when the Russian people learn the truth about the war, they will rise up against it and defy Putin. Instead, we see that 20 years of propaganda has made Russian society incapable of revolt. Some conscientious Russians have come out onto the streets, but have been jailed and silenced quickly. Others have fled to Turkey and other countries, but the vast majority of zombified Russians appear to still support this war. Meanwhile, as NATO reinforces its eastern flank and watches from the other side, Ukraine is left to fend off the new Hitler by itself. We have pleaded for the West to close the sky over Ukraine, whether this is NATO or the UN doing a limited humanitarian corridor or an airdrop over Mariupol. We have pleaded for airplanes so we could create our own no-fly zone. Many countries say they're standing with Ukraine every day. We see photo ops with officials, Stoltenberg, Biden, Macron. We hear a lot of promises, promises, and promises. But instead of providing meaningful weapons, our partners are providing weapons designed for guerrilla war. For example, javelins and laws. They're helpful to some extent, especially in the hands of our incredibly heroic and creative Ukrainian defenders. But these weapons are not enough to crush the Russian war machine. Similar situation with the sanctions. We asked for swift cut-off. Turns out, after the big announcement, only about 7 banks out of 300 native Russian banks have blocked from SWIFT. With other sanctions, there have been hidden loopholes and exemptions and grace periods allowing Russian oligarchs to hide their wealth and get around the sanctions. Given how long it has taken for sanctions to be imposed and the many loopholes, it is shocking to hear voices in the West already talking about when the sanctions might start to be lifted, or the possibility of reconciliation with Russia. There should be no talk of lifting sanctions until the Russian war machine is permanently incapacitated, until trillions of dollars in reparations start to flow to Ukraine for rebuilding, and until Russia has been brought to account for its crimes against humanity. Ukrainians will win this war, no doubt about it. But the question is, how many lives will be sacrificed? How many lives will it take? How high of a cost must Ukraine pay? When world leaders say they are with Ukraine, they need to put their money where their mouth is. The US government give Ukraine the weapon it needs, make the sanctions tougher, and do these things quickly. Don't wait, act now. No more delays, no more dragging things out. A few words about my non-profit organization, US Ukrainian Activists. Our volunteers started helping Ukraine since the spring of 2014, when Ukraine was first attacked by Russia. Today, once again, Ukraine is in great peril. I and other members of US Ukrainian Activists and other non-profit organizations have been standing with you in front of the White House every day since the full-scale invasion by Russia on February the 24th. We come to the White House daily, US Ukrainian Activists and United Help Ukraine. So we come to the White House daily to request the Biden administration to honor Budapest Memorandum, to stop genocide in Ukraine, and to defend Ukraine now, to protect Ukrainian skies, to provide no-fly zone over Ukraine, missile defense for Ukraine, to supply Ukraine with fighter jets, to end all business ties with Russia, and to cut all Russian banks from SWIFT. Please join us from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on the weekdays and from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. on the weekends by the White House to support Ukraine. Also, please write to the White House and your senators and representatives with the request which I mentioned earlier. Rallies and writing to our representatives is just one way we try to support Ukraine. As the war in Ukraine rages, my non-profit organization, US Ukrainian Activists, United Help Ukraine, and other non-profits in the US work tirelessly to support Ukrainian soldiers with medical supplies and other humanitarian causes, as well as helping civilians fleeing the war to find shelter, food, and support. Our volunteers are working day and night to help the people of Ukraine in these tragic times. Every dollar you give will go towards saving innocent lives. And a small announcement, US Ukrainian Activist is organizing Julian Kitasti Bandura Charity Concert. we invite you to attend this charity concert on Saturday, May the 7th at 5 p.m. at the Ukraine House in Washington, D.C. to enjoy the bandura performance of an amazing Ukrainian-American bandurist, Julian Kitasti. All the proceeds will go to support Ukrainian paramedics hospitales who save lives on the front lines. Please attend the concert and support Ukraine. Find US-Ukrainian activists on our website and Facebook to read more details about this concert. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Glory to Ukraine and glory to Ukrainian heroes. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Friends, we have only one more speaker, then we have a moment of silence, a quick song, and then we'll end. So I promise this is going quickly. I know it's cold, but believe me, it's so much colder for the people in Mariupol and all over Ukraine. So bear with us. We are very close to finishing. I'd like to introduce next the Executive Vice President of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, Mr. Michael Sakyu.
Reverend clergy, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, Shanovna Hromado. We stand in front of the Lincoln Memorial, a memorial to the president who saved this republic in the 19th century. But across the reflecting pool is the memorial to the Second World War. And I'm reminded of a former NBC broadcaster, Tom Brokaw, who wrote his book, The Greatest Generation, about the trials and tribulations and determination of the United States during World War II, when a generation stepped up against evil, stepped up to stop a thug, stepped up to stop a killer, stepped up to stop a war criminal, stepped up to stop a butcher, for the sole purpose, that that man cannot remain in power. But today in Ukraine, we have another greatest generation defending freedom of the 21st century. That description of stopping a thug, stopping a killer, stopping a war criminal, stopping a butcher, or that man cannot remain in power, is the newest evil of the 21st century. And as described just yesterday by President Biden in his speech in Warsaw. Ukraine is fighting. It's fighting a war of democracy versus autocracy. It's fighting a war of democratic principles versus authoritarianism. It is fighting the fight of good versus evil. And this is not just a cliche. But to be successful in this fight, we must define and recognize who and what the evil is. And that evil is Russian imperialism. Let's not hide behind the fact. Today, Ukraine suffers the tragedies of war. Every citizen of the United States, every citizen of the world has an obligation, has a moral duty to stop the war, to stop aggression. And anything but failure to stop the aggressor will only manifest itself elsewhere in an even more heinous and dangerous form. I mentioned President Biden's speech in Warsaw yesterday, where he had mentioned that the aggressor dare not take an inch of NATO soil. I say today that the Russian aggressor dare not take any more of Ukraine's soil, and Ukraine will advance its freedom and its territorial integrity against the foreign aggressor. Several weeks ago, President Zelensky addressed Congress. He added that the leader of the world should also be the leader of peace. Let us follow that particular sentiment. Let us follow those heroes of World War II, the greatest generation, and let us stand together to defend Ukraine today. Our duty as American citizens, again, as citizens of the world, our obligation is to make our voice heard. Call your congressmen, call your senators, contact the White House, and tell them to stop the war. Demand immediate military defensive assistance to Ukraine. Demand a no-fly zone to stop the missiles that are killing Ukraine's civilians, and to provide refugees those status here in the United States, to give them peace and to give them solace. Today, we stand here in Washington, D.C., as many other Ukrainian Americans and Ukrainians stand in other cities of the United States. We stand with Ukraine. We are all Ukrainians. God bless America. Slava Ukraini!
Friends, the next moment, we would like to do something that we do at every event, which is to hold a moment of silence for those who have already given their lives. Some who have given their lives did so willingly. In the Ukrainian army, in the territorial defense, they knew where they were going, and they knew what they were fighting for. Others were simply innocent children, men, women, grandfathers, grandmothers, who were forced to give their lives due to a merciless attack by missiles, bombs, and other modern weapons that should never be used on cities. Those of you who can, please join us by taking a knee to show to our heroes that we care. Thank you.